tonight. Trey, another day, not participating. What's your confidence level in him for Sunday?
I think it's good. He went through the walkthrough stuff, the installations. So, he's moving around. And then, off to the side, he was working with the trainers. So, pretty confident. Again, a lot of it depends on how he feels tomorrow morning, though.
Seems to be progressing with the ankle. Is he getting close to where?
Yeah, Fozzie looked pretty good. He did. He moved around well, for the limited reps he had. And again, he's another one that we obviously will most certainly take a look at tomorrow.
With all the other backs, you got to do similar things as he to help. Does he blend back into things?
Well, we'll see. Again, there's some things that we're doing. And again, it's going to be about opportunities. We got a good group of guys, and we got to figure out the best combination.
How do you think Devin will handle this kind of move up to the X?
I think he's going to be fine. I mean, it's not as if he hadn't done it, Joe. We mix and matched a lot of people during the regular season so far, and again, it's really, I don't think it's really that big a difference. I mean, we still run the same plays. It's just a matter of who's running them now.
Have you seen him? How have you seen him, if at all, approach things differently in this third season?
Well, I think you see the maturity level. Again, getting here early. I'm walking around at 6 o'clock in the morning, and he's already here. I'm going to practice early, and he's already on the practice field, catching extra balls, doing some extra stretching, stuff like that. You see him, jumping in and helping on show team, even on show team with special teams. And when guys are doing that, I think it's now that team atmosphere, that team attitude that, that you look for in guys, and he's expressed that.
How did having him on the roster make the move you made with Kelvin easier?
Okay. Before I forget, we do play Atlanta on Sunday. Okay, and I'm really, I don't want to keep going back to this, guys. No, and I'm just telling. I mean, really, I know, but again, I don't want to keep going back to it. I mean, I think we've gotten enough information. It's ad nauseum. I mean, I'd love to be able to talk about, we got a game on Sunday.
When you have such versatility in the guys that would be opposite or next to Devin in this case, does it kind of not really make sense to name one of them or tell one of them that they are the starter,
right?
Because you're going to rotate so often?
Right, and going into it, for the most part, when we look at it, a lot of it will be dictated as to who we play. Some will be dictated as to what Mike wants to call in terms of personnel groupings. So, we could open up in a personnel grouping that could cause, Curtis, Samuel to be out there at the same time, with Devin and he could be there with 2 tight ends. He call another one. You could have Shep and Curtis. I call another one. You could have Shep, Curtis, and Devin. So it really is just going to depend on the flow of things for Mike.
Against a defense that's used to, in practice, going against a shifty offense in Atlanta, this weekend's opponent, how might this be beneficial?
Well, I think it's good just because of the fact that, some of the things that they do are similar to us. There is a lot of shifts. There is a lot of motions. They run fly sweeps and stuff like that. So a lot of this stuff we've seen already.
What have you seen from their offense now that they've changed offensive coordinators, and how Atlanta's offense kind of clicking or not?
Well, I think a big part of it right now is again, the quarterback really is the trigger man, and he makes the decisions as to what's going on out there. I think really it's just getting the ball to certain people. And you look at it, it's still the same group of guys. And the one thing I really do believe is these guys are getting everybody's best effort. I mean, this is not like, you're playing a team, okay, but this is defending NFC champs, and I think that turns it up a notch, and I think they've gotten everybody's best effort.
How much attention is paid in the defensive scheme to a guy like Julio Jones?
Well, I think a lot of it is dictated by a lot of things. I mean, you've got to recognize situation first and foremost, then you got to recognize personnel groupings, and then you got to recognize formations and alignments, and then where is he aligned? Is he the 1, the 2, or the 3 receiver on that side? And I think as you game plan, a lot of those things will come into play as you're setting up your defenses. So there's probably a good amount. I'm going to say probably 35–45% of the time, you're going to specifically key on him, but it's all going to be about situational football.
Is that a collective thing on the defense, or are you looking at your guys, Luke and Kurt?
Well, it's a collective thing because, again, the guys that line up across from him, have to identify, obviously. You know, if he's in the 1, 2, or 3 spot, you'll hear guys will be pointing it out. Hey, he's at the 3, he's at the 2. I think those things help.
How is James Bradbury's development? I know because a lot of times this year you're happy to leave him on the island and let your defense do what it does. Going facing Atlanta this year, it's obviously a bit of a different scenario.
Well, I think last year, you know, in game 1 we had a plan, and then he suffers the turf toe, and he barely played 4 or 5, you know, snaps, and we had set up a whole attitude, a whole idea. You know, Sean and Steve put together, I thought, a really good package, and then we had to put a guy in there that really didn't get the reps to do it, and it was kind of unfair on him, and you know, he crushed us that day. Then we come back here and play, and we put James on him, and James, you know, was healthy again and played a pretty good game against him. So, you know, as we go forward, you know, James is pretty fearless, and he's willing to take those chances and those, you know, and when you give him that opportunity, I think that's really cool.
How does it also help the rest of the defense though too?
Well, I think what it does is again, you know, you identify the guy that's going to go work against this guy, and then the other guys can focus in on what they do. How does it help? Well, I think part of it is, you know, what are you trying to accomplish? What are you trying to take away? And you know, it gives you, I think, a little bit of a, you know, we can focus on this part of the field as opposed to just where, you know, one guy is specifically.
Well, they had some success getting their running backs matched up against some of your linebackers, at least in that second game, I think, last year. How will having Shaq maybe on the field a little bit more help combat that?
Well, I think the thing about it is, you know, and Shaq has shown a specific skill set. You know, and one of the things is he's a tremendous cover guy. And again, if we can put him in positions where, you know, if they try to create mismatches, you know, he's one of the guys involved in the coverage. And that's one of the things you try to create in terms of those opportunities.
In the scouting process of him all the way up until today, have you ever seen James Bradbury get rattled?
No, not really. I mean, he's such an easygoing, calm. I mean, he really is a very calm guy, and I think he's one of those guys who just keeps his wits about him. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen him, you know, rattled. He's very competitive. He wants to compete, and it's interesting because one of the comments I have heard him say, you know, when somebody, I guess, said something to him about the way he prepares, you know, you work real hard. He goes, heck, I'm not coming out here to get embarrassed. I mean, that's probably the most I've heard him say about things like that.
Ron, you guys brought Burson back. Was there any thought to maybe pulling up a guy from the practice squad, or
we thought about that, but when you look at how young the other guys are, you know, and Funch is only a third-year guy, and you say, well, you know, Burse really knows, and he's been around. There was a lot of conversation. You know, Mose Frazier's a guy that, you know, has had a really good time with us, had a good camp, and, you know, you'd like to be able to get him active because, you know, he's earning it. But we just felt really good about bringing a guy back that knows the system. The quarterback has a specific comfort level with him as well, which we knew. So having him back here, I think, gives that. He's more of an underneath guy. You know, he's a guy that knows how to find the crease in the seams and the zones, and knows where to sit down, stuff like that. He's not going to scare anybody vertically, but he's that guy that can find the hole when when the zones are there. He's you know, and he's brought back specifically for that. You know, we're going to rely on, as far as the speed's concerned, you know, with Curtis and with Kalen, you know, two guys that we think can get vertical, and then Shep. Shep is a little bit more deceptive, I think, than people give him credit for. He's proven to be a pretty good receiver for us as well. But one thing he does do is he's very physical and he'll block.
Speaking about speed, Funch seems like he's very sensitive when people try to suggest he's not real fast.
Well, the thing about Funch is he's sneaky fast. He's a build-up guy. You know, with those long legs, once he gets him turning over, he can go pretty good. He really can. I think some of his better routes are the digs, you know, the 12 to 15 yarders, and he hits that, and he makes a pretty good cut. He sinks his hips nicely when he makes a lot of his cuts and gets in and out of them pretty quickly.
Russell Shepard has seemed to really adapt well into not only being a guy who just kind of fits in seamlessly with the offense, but also you always hear him encouraging everybody on the field. Across the field, you hear him encouraging people.
Yeah, we hear him a lot. But he does. He really does, and you're right about that, Jordan. He's a guy that's really kind of assimilated nicely to the locker room, to the culture in the locker room, and he is a very supportive guy of his teammates. He wants to see everybody succeed because he realizes, that the team's success is tied into the players and the players' success is tied into the team. And I think that's important that you have guys like that. I think it's also important when you bring a new guy in, that he understands and he fits in and he works to fit in. He's done a very nice job of that. He's proven himself as a player, too. He's done some good things for us on special teams, and he's made some plays for us in terms of being on the field as a wide receiver.
Some guys always feel like the odd man out, but Russell, even coming from Tampa, has never really felt like that, at least in my perception of it. Why is that specifically?
Well, I think part of it, too, is we roll a lot of people. We don't sit there and, okay, we bring a guy in and then we just put him to the side. We're always looking to get guys opportunities to get on the football field and play. There's some positions where you really don't do that a lot, but there are others that it's important. Wide receiver is one of them. I mean, you can have a specific role as a wide receiver, certain packages you can own, and he's done a nice job owning his opportunities when he's been on the field.
You are a week-to-week guy, very, very clearly, but is this pretty special week given the matchup and the fact that they kind of had your number last year?
Yes. I think, again, when you look at, past history, obviously you want to bounce back and play well and win. You do for several reasons as far as this game's concerned. One is it's divisional. Two is it's conference. And, if you can obviously get a leg up on these guys, because I really, think they're a good football team. And as things look, if everything continues and things work out, we're all going to play each other down the stretch. And so you've got to make sure that you've put yourself in position with tiebreakers and all that kind of stuff as well. I mean, when I talk about not wanting to look forward and talking in terms of the next game up, but when I look forward in terms of the record and how all that stands, Joe, it's important to win games like this because there's so many implications in terms of tiebreakers.
Cam hinted yesterday. Cam said that losing to Atlanta for him is personal.
Mm-hmm.
And with the number of Georgia connections that are in that room, but a lot of guys kind of feel that way.
Yes.
Does it
Oh, yeah.
filter all the way through?
I think it does, and I think again, if there's a motivation, a little extra something for those guys from Atlanta, that's it. Knowing that they're your teammates, I think you would want to help win this one for them, because again, it is his hometown. He does go home, and he knows a lot of people, and a lot of people know him, and I've always felt that way when I used to go back to California wanting to win, especially in the Bay Area, whether it was the Raiders or the Niners. Good, cool. Thank you, guys.